to Berlin, Germany, as we are looking for our second finalist who will join Fnatic in the final tomorrow. Will it be G2 or will it be Team BDS? My name is Shox, and today I'm joined by Aragon and Niski, and Goldberg is standing by as well. All hands on deck. Welcome, Niski.
Thank you.
You're not in theme.
You're not. You're
not
missing the tiger print.
Yeah.
What's going on?
I blame SK.
Yeah. Oh no, called out. You'll also be here tomorrow for the final, so perhaps we'll see you in a tux then. Maybe it's just not the big leagues yet. But hey, let's talk about those season finals as well, because we finally do have our 6 teams that are locked into the season finals. Aragon, what do you find of the field that we have going on the road to Munich?
It's an impressive field. I think it's been such a long playoffs, but I will say I do miss KC already. I think there was such an argument that they could still even be top 3, but still a very impressive field.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people started to fall in love with KC, both because their play was looking better as well as the players there, but that's how the cookie crumbles, right? You got to look at the whole year.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like they had 2 really bad splits, and then now they're like slowly picked it up, but it was way too late. And personally, I'm very happy that they're out because they look pretty good, and I'm glad that the Giants took the spot. So yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Who's the odd duck out?
Mad. I would say 2 teams don't belong there, and it's Mad and the Giants.
That are the teams that I think are going to have to show us a lot more, right? I think that's fair to say, right, Aragon?
Yeah, no, I completely. I think especially Mad. I think Mad have been incredibly shaky, and it's just been really the Elyoya show trying to shine, trying to facilitate his lanes, especially up top side, whereas some of the rest of the individuals haven't been doing well.
Indeed. Now, it's also the race for Worlds, so it's these teams that are still in the running for Worlds, and I think it's fair to assume that G2 and Fnatic, because of their all-year performance, I think BDS is also kind of there, could have the better cards. But who will be that third team, or who should be? I know you want SK to be there, but who do you think it should be, Aragon?
Look, I've thought about this for a long time now. SK versus BDS is really the question. In the end, I've got to go with SK. BDS were too shaky in terms of some individual. Their macro play wasn't there. I hate to praise the person right next to me. It feels odd, but generally, outside of the Screamer week last week, I don't know what happened there.
It's fine.
Niski does pretty good in clutch situations, so I'm going to go with SK.
Okay, we'll see indeed, but you're right, and we're going to see BDS again today. Now, the season finals, they are starting on August 10th, and of course, that last weekend of August, we are heading over to Munich. You can get your tickets for Munich at lec.gg/Munich. We're not there yet. You said it already, BDS yesterday, they eliminated KC in a 5-game series. Niski, what did you think of the show?
I think pretty exciting games from KC. I think the only problem that they had, they couldn't really deal with Nuke. I actually think Nuke had, I believe, his best performance in a best of 5. And I really hope that today he also shows us what he can do against Caps, because I don't think it's going to be as easy.
Yeah, definitely. I also think KC had other issues in terms of the drafting department. I think the biggest one, the most egregious, was definitely the full AD versus Malphite Morg with the Vi as well. I think Closer got exposed in terms of champion pool, and among other issues, those were the biggest to me.
Yeah, that's a good point, Aragon. And when we think about kind of the match that they have today versus G2, it's a whole different beast in terms of draft. I think BDS probably got given a couple of gifts yesterday, you know, in terms of what they could draft into KC, but they're going to have to clean more up than that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the biggest one that stands out to me is Adam's ability to counterpick as well as blind. It was super odd, and in some ways could be interpreted as disrespectful, with the blind pick Olaf assuming Kana didn't have anything, as well as his counterpicks being a bit lackluster, especially with the Scion into the Kennen saving R5 for that. It was kind of disappointing.
Do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree. I think Adam will have a rough time today, because I do believe BB probably has like a lot of champions ready for Adam, and I feel like the Olaf and the Darius, like those champions don't really work into BB, and also the ability of G2 playing the map, I think will hurt a lot BDS if Adam does not have TP.
Yeah, it's going to be difficult. We'll dive a bit deeper into the matchup in just a second, but this is the bracket as it stands.
No, don't spread this propaganda, Shox, okay? This is a conspiracy, I'm telling you, okay? The LEC has trapped us in some strange time loop, a circle, if you will, of the LEC. And I will prove it to you. You see, while our current schedule looks like this is actually a better visualization of it. Our current time loop, how many times have you seen this? BDS third, Fnatic lose the finals to G2, and G2 wins it all. It keeps happening again and again and again. So let's have a look at some of the evidence supporting my theory, okay? It was very, very long ago winter split of 2024, BDS would try and make a deep playoffs run, but alas, would not make it further than what? Third. That's right. Fast forward to the very recent spring playoffs, where once again, they would only manage at what? You're right, third. And if that doesn't convince you, then hear me out for a second. BDS consists of 3 letters. Think about it. That's all. No, it's not. There's actually Fnatic as well. So let's have a look at that. In the last 5 years, they have lost 5 finals to G2. We've been stuck in the same storylines since 2019. Fnatic beating G2 in the upper bracket was even used in the 2020 script. And if you're not convinced, then just look at this right here. The fact that G2 always wins since our 3 split seasons format. If they make it into top 3, no matter how many times someone tries to stop them in this scenario, they win it all. And this is the reality we live in. Now, I've come up with a solution, okay? First off, let's get best of 17s into this one. That's the only way we can really solve this. It's clear the best of 5s are not really adequate enough. And also, wait, hold up a second. So if we get rid of their keyboards, right? And then actually we give them GameCube controllers instead, then we can break the circle. It's a cube.
Calm down, calm down. I understand that you're going insane. I mean, I also would like the same thing not to happen again. I will have you know that Rogue won a split one summer. Yeah?
Yeah.
Mad Lions did also, so...
It's long ago.
Yeah, there is hope. Anyways, let's hear from G2 and we'll let GB calm down. And we'll hear from Dylan to hear what his planning is for taking on BDS today in the Marriott Bonvoy pregame lobby.
Thank you very much, Shocks. And thank you, Dylan, for joining me ahead of your best of versus Team BDS. Now, Gulbok was suggesting we should probably have a best of 17 between you two guys. However, I think by now you've probably played 17 games against each other in a best of.
Yeah, I think we played them in a best of in every single playoffs. I think we actually played a best of 5 against them all of the splits so far this year. And I think we also played them last year in seasons finals. Yeah, there's been a lot of G2 versus BDS.
Now listen to me, there's a little bit of a controversy. Ever since the format change, you guys have not been able to win through a lower bracket. It was last spring, 2023.
Okay.
The Mad Lions incident. However, BDS have never been able to beat you either in a best of. So what's happening? Who's going to break the curse?
Well, I think when it comes to us in the lower bracket, there's a sample size of 1.
All right.
I think when it's us against BDS in a best of series, the sample size is probably like 7 or 8. So I think just if you're going off of like probably data and statistical things, I would say we'd probably have a higher confidence interval in us in this one. Yeah.
All right, now I'm going to take you to a series that was not as fun as you guys playing BDS, which was the Fnatic series. What patterns did you take away from that particular series that you're looking to correct coming into today's one?
I think Fnatic played very well that series. I think games 2 and 3 were pretty tough for us. It's always interesting when the enemy locks in just full losing lanes and scaling, and you drop your lead. That can be a very hard thing to kind of solve on the spot, because I think, for example, in a couple of those games, we were in a position where I think we could win and should win if we would play to our best. So I think it's just a balance of finding match preparation that is a bit easier to close out the games, first of all, obviously, and then second of all, still being willing to play aggressive and closing the games when we are ahead.
Is it scary seeing as BDS sort of did the same in their series yesterday? I talked to Shion, he was like, we were just purely drafting for team fighting, didn't matter a lot in lane, they were losing a bunch of them end side lanes. So coming into today, is that a little bit scary?
Yeah, I think in the first game, they played like an early game draft, up 2 inhibitors, and then through. And I guess that they had a similar reaction where it really threw them for a loop over what we should actually do. I don't know if they'll come in today playing full scaling. I think for a team like K-Corp, that's probably a pretty good plan, as that's kind of how K-Corp plays. They play very passive, so if you just win the team fights later, you're probably going to win the game. But I wouldn't say that that's necessarily how us or BDS is going to come out today.
Wow, let's see how you guys play against each other. Maybe it's something completely new. Dylan, thank you so much, and best of luck in your best of. Shocks,
thank you so much.
Thank you so much, and good notes there, Trouble. They have played each other so many times, particularly also in those best of 5s. I mean, I think BDS is probably like the most well-trained team in the LEC because of the amount of best of 5s they play versus G2. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. Except it's so tough to say that that's actually going to give them the edge, you know, because they're trained in losing to them. And while losing is improving, exactly, it's like they've tried so many times and they just haven't been able to crack the code just yet. And I think today's, He's probably still going to show that.
We don't know, but G2 though, they might be looking weaker. Of course, they lost a best of 5 to Fnatic, which never happens. It was 849 days. My dyscalculia is being annoying. But Niski, what do you think about the state of G2? Is there something that G2 fans should be worried about?
I think they should only be worried about that they only draft the early game. I believe G2 probably made some adjustments coming into this game because against Fnatic they were always ahead, I felt like, in the early game, but then they didn't have the comp that would match against Fnatic in the mid game. And I think Fnatic had that read that if they just survive early game, then they would just be winning team fights even if they are 3 or 4k down.
Yeah, Fnatic seemed really, really confident in those games, and we also heard in Caps recaps with Broken Blade and Caps, after that Broken Blade was saying, that's what it's called, he was saying that, you know, they are used to playing in Chaos, of course, G2, we know that, but in this instant, they weren't equipped in dealing with it. If I read in between the lines, I think that means you're not as confident as a team as you usually are, right, in those games, because you usually win them.
I mean, I do, yes, but I also agree with Niski's points with the draft as well. G2 is very good at this control chaos, right? They love making it more chaotic, where they can actually skill dip as well, and they can play a hyper-aggressive play, and then they can slow it down and play side lanes for Caps. Like, they're very good at finding the fluid moments in the game, but I think they just did not have drafts that actually supported their way of playing the game. I think mid to late game it became very difficult for them to play around the aggression of Fnatic, and they just got lost in the sauce.
A couple of things that we need to focus on. I think you mentioned already the top lane, right? I want to take a look at the champion pools for Broken Blade and Adam specifically. Now, Broken Blade has had a good time usually versus Adam, and from what you saw yesterday, do you think that's going to be the same today?
Yeah, I think BB's champion pool compared to Adam's, I feel like is completely opposite. I think BB plays a lot of carries, and if he has to play the tank, he will, but I feel like he's way better on carries, and I feel like Adam's champion pool, like the Olaf, the Darius, the Yasuo won't really work into BB, and I think against G2 as a whole, because if you pick Yasuo into like a Nard in the top lane, then Miki will just pick Poppy, or like Caps will just play like Renekton mid or whatever, and I feel like they're very good at countering what you pick on other roles compared to Casey, where they just pick what they're good at.
I completely agree, because I think Adam's role recently in playoffs at least has been also that he has gotten that R5, but most of the time he's not been given that counter pick to win the lane, he's been given that counter pick to stabilize the lane, and that's often put them in a position where he's either going even or actually falling behind, and you're missing that power that Adam used to bring in the top sides. I think definitely up in this top lane matchup, BB is favored.
It's going to be interesting to watch. Now, I'm looking at BDS and I'm looking at Ice. I also want to mention Lebrov yesterday in the series, but specifically in that game 5. Is that a point where you think BDS has an advantage in the way these teams match up?
I mean, I definitely think that Ice is the ace up your sleeve on BDS. I think he's the best performing player right now throughout all of playoffs and the regular season, and I think that no matter what happens, he's still that reliable late game AD carry that loves playing the Jinx, does not mind the Kai'Sa, can play this area as well in Former. Like, he is just your insurance. The problem is that enough? Because you definitely need him to work, but even then you're still going up against great players on G2.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the problem I have with the bot lane of BDS, I feel like G2 will not play bot lane. Like, usually they just push bot and then they group with Yike. Like, Miki, Yike just play around mid all the time. And for me, Nuke has to be ahead or even against Caps, because I feel like yesterday in all games he was doing really well. But I think against G2's mid-jungle support synergy, it will not be as easy.
Okay, yeah, Nuke, he has a target on his back, and you're saying in the system of how they can beat them, it's going to be pivotal. That's going to be difficult. Let's hear our predictions then. G2 or BDS? I know it's like an easy one when you look at history, but maybe there's something else on the cards.
Maybe. I don't think so. I've said 3-0. So you are right, maybe. You're definitely more towards the maybe with that 3-2.
Hey, I'm just, for all the games, we've gotten like 19 out of 20 so
That's
far,
crazy.
so we're going to keep going. But yeah, Niski 3-1 at least.
Yeah. I think BDS will take one game.
It's kind of cop-out
I
prediction.
think G2 will troll one mid game and then BDS will take it, but I believe in the end G2 will be in the finals.
All right, GB, why are you so confident that it will be a simple 3-0?
Well, I think it's just how the individual match up against each other and how they play the broader map state. BDS currently has relied a lot on overgrouping, where I think if you do that against G2, they will pull you apart on the map.
Okay, let's see. BDS, they made it to the top 3 again, but can they break the circle of the LEC and find redemption by beating G2 on their way to the finals? It will not be easy, as G2 is keen to fight for the 3rd title in a row to be crowned as the only champion we have seen this year. Let's jump into the action. G2 versus BDS.